Hello there, you're watching SME On Point. My name is Sidia Bosito. Thank you so much for staying with SABC News. The small business industry is looking to the 7th administration to prioritize the development and growth of small businesses. In the Government of National Unity, Minister Stella Ndabeni-Abrahams has been retained, deputized by Jane Sithole. What does the small business industry expect from the GNU? To share insights, I've invited SME expert and no stranger to the show, founder of 2020 Insight, Karabo Mashukhane. Thank you so much for joining us once again on SME On Point. You always honor our invites. What are your thoughts with regards to, firstly, let's talk about the fact that now we have a different structure of government, but there's Department of Small Businesses remains the Department of Small Businesses. From your clients and those that you help, what has been their experience with regards to this particular department and this minister in particular?
Yeah, so I mean, our work is primarily with the corporate sectors. However, I would say, you know, similar to the business sector, competition, having a monopoly is bad for the consumer. And as citizens of the country, we're the consumers of government services. Yeah. And with the new GNU and with the sort of not having one dominant party, I think there'll be more competition. So, and we've always said as a country that, you know, some of our policies are very good. We just struggle with implementation, which is really just accountability. So I think with the new structure, there will be some competition and probably ministries not wanting to be the one that's lagging behind the stuff. So hopefully one will start seeing improved performance from all the departments and particularly also from the small.
It hasn't been all bad. I mean, we are now more than 100 days of no load shedding, and I'm sure that our viewers and followers of SME On Point are really happy about that. But we're obviously looking for continuity. What other things or reforms are we expecting to help develop the small business industry, loans, funds, and also that amendment bill? Not much has come through about it. I thought it would have been signed at the end of the last administration. However, it's still sitting on the table. Yeah,
so hopefully we'll start seeing a continuation of that. I think one was, and there was some consolidation, I think, within the small business sector in terms of how government engages it, but also just seeing the small business being more activist in terms of engaging with government. And I think we saw the letter from the Department of Small Business that came out, I think, on the 2nd of July.
Yes.
You know, bemoaning the fact that government is suffocating small businesses with the late payments. And I think the Eastern Cape had about 4.5 billion rand of payments that came in late to small businesses. And here in Gauteng, we had about 2.7 billion rand. So hopefully that sort of holding a government to making them responsible and holding them to account on their performance and the support of small businesses will increase.
That report actually emanates from the National Treasury that Minister Ndabeni-Abrahams was responding to and talking about. In fact, they were saying that government is regressing with the payments of 30 days of small businesses. And one of the recommendations is that there should be consequences for particularly DGs of those departments who do not implement that policy. Is this something that could work? In reality, this has been happening for a very long time. Who in a department should be held responsible for the fact that 50 suppliers have not been paid on time, and some of them, they rely on that money and they end up having to close business, having to cut off jobs, etc.?
Yeah, so ultimately the DGs are like CEOs of their departments, right? So they are accountable for that. And I think if they don't enforce it and hold their subordinates accountable, then I think they should be held accountable. So one is very happy about that. And one of the key things is also that hopefully as we go into the policy lekgotla and into the national dialogue, we'll also look at different ways of how we view the SME sector and how we look at small businesses.
Yes.
And we've tended, I think, as a country to look at small businesses more as charity cases. In terms of how they're supported and just looking at them as
Won't you just expand on that? What do you mean by that?
Well, I mean, for example, I think the minister spoke about looking at creating an ecosystem that will support 1 million small businesses.
Yeah.
And that if each one employs 3.7, on average 3.7 people, then that's almost 4 million jobs that can be created from that or supported from that. However, I would say, you know, small businesses create jobs when they grow. So the focus should be on finding within that, yes, create that ecosystem, but have a policy and a focus on saying, how do we find the ones that have a potential to become the next large corporate, etc., and how do we support them? And one of the key things I think that hampers that is that our classification of small businesses, we look at small businesses as companies generally turnovers of about 50 million, or less. In other countries, in the UK, I think, for example, they look at if I'm not wrong, I think it was 10 million pounds, 40 million pounds, actually, about 40 million pounds or so. So there you're looking at almost R1 billion that is still considered a relatively a medium-sized business. And what happens in our country, what we've experienced over and over again, is that small businesses get supported, they experience some growth, and then once they grow beyond 50 million, we stop supporting them. Right? And then and that growth is based on a 3-year contract that they've got. Once that contract goes, then the small business regresses again, and then they come back. So that cycle never ends. But if we were to look at these businesses to say, look, a business that turns over 200 million rand, especially if they've only done it for the first year or the second year, still needs support, because they're not sustainable yet. A lot of them are just contract-based or project-based. So they need to show some sustainability. And if you've been turning over 200 million, 500 million for the past 5 years, for example, then we can say, okay, you're fit enough to go on your own. But during that initial growth phase, there's a lot of support that is required, and that support, we need to stay with those businesses a bit longer than I think currently.
So what we're looking forward to now is that Cabinet Lekgotla and the outcomes of it, because they're going to be taking all those manifestos from the different political parties and consolidating, looking at what's possible and what's not. If there were 2 things that you think came out of any manifesto that you think is important to be looked at right now, what would that be?
Look, I think the key thing is especially with the other parties that we.
Okay. I may have to stop our interview just here, Garabo. I believe that we do have some developments happening with regards to the new Prime Minister of Britain, who's currently giving a briefing. Keir Starmer is briefing the media at Downing Street. This follows the Labour Party's landslide victory. Let's cross to that line.
His achievement as the first British Asian Prime Minister of our country, the extra effort that will have required should not be underestimated by anyone. And we pay tribute to that today. And we also recognise the dedication and hard work he brought to his leadership. But now our country has voted decisively for change, for national renewal, and a return of politics to public service. When the gap between the sacrifices made by people and the service they receive from politicians grows this big, it leads to a weariness in the heart of a nation, a draining away of the hope, the spirit, the belief in a better future, that we need to move forward together. Now, this wound, this lack of trust, can only be healed by actions, not words. I know that. But we can make a start today with the simple acknowledgement that public service is a privilege and that your government should treat every single person in this country with respect. If you voted Labour yesterday, we will carry the responsibility of your trust as we rebuild our country. But whether you voted Labour or not, in fact, especially if you did not, I say to you directly, my government will serve you. Politics can be a force for good. We will show that. We've changed the Labour Party, returned it to service, and that is how we will govern. Country first, party second. Yet, if I'm honest, service is merely a precondition of hope, and it is surely clear to everyone that our country needs a bigger reset, a rediscovery of who we are, because no matter how fierce the storms of history, one of the great strengths of this nation has always been our ability to navigate a way to calmer waters. And yet this depends upon politicians, particularly those who stand for stability and moderation, as I do, recognising when we must change course. For too long now, we've turned a blind eye as millions slid into greater insecurity, nurses, builders, drivers, carers, people doing the right thing, working harder every day, recognised at moments like this before, yet as soon as the cameras stop rolling, their lives are ignored. I want to say very clearly to those people, not this time. Changing a country is not like flicking a switch. The world is now a more volatile place. This will take a while. But have no doubt that the work of change begins immediately. Have no doubt that we will rebuild Britain with wealth created in every community. Our NHS back on its feet facing the future. Secure borders, safer streets, everyone treated with dignity and respect at work. The opportunity of clean British power, cutting your energy bills for good. And brick by brick, we will rebuild the infrastructure of opportunity. The world-class schools and colleges, the affordable homes that I know are the ingredients of hope for working people. The security that working class families like mine can build their lives around. Because if I asked you now whether you believe that Britain will be better for your children, I know too many of you would say no. And so my government will fight every day until you believe again. From now on, you have a government unburdened by doctrine, guided only by the determination to serve your interest, to defy, quietly, those who have written our country off. You have given us a clear mandate, and we will use it to deliver change, to restore service and respect to politics, end the era of noisy performance, tread more lightly on your lives, and unite our country. 4 nations standing together again, facing down, as we have so often in our past, the challenges of an insecure world, committed to a calm and patient rebuilding. So, with respect and humility, I invite you all to join this government of service in the mission of national renewal. Our work is urgent, and we begin it today. Thank you very much.
Well, those are visuals that you're looking at outside of number 10 Downing Street, where incoming British Prime Minister Sir Keir Starmer was addressing the media.